The Saints extend Alvin Kamara on a 2-year, $24.5 million deal with over $22 million guaranteed. So Kamara is going to be getting all of his money. And you could take one of two positions on this. Here go the Saints again, signing an aging player who's also a running back to almost market value. Or here go the Saints paying one of their few players who's producing, who is willing to play this season without a contract extension, and you do right by your players. Because Alvin Kamara, as we sit, is the all-time leader in total touchdowns for the Saints, rushing touchdowns for the Saints, total touchdowns scored, by the way. Obviously, we know Drew Brees has a plethora, hundreds and hundreds of touchdown passes with the Saints, but touchdowns scored by certain player. He's scored 85 times. He's the all-time leader in total touchdowns. He's the all-time leader in rushing touchdowns. He's the all-time leader in scrimmage yards, and he's the all-time leader in all-purpose yards. He's also only 233 yards away from becoming the Saints' all-time leading rusher and passing Mark Ingram, who's got 6,500 yards as a rusher for the New Orleans Saints, which again is the franchise record. Alvin Kamara is all over the record books for the New Orleans Saints, and I'm grateful that we re-signed him because I get to keep wearing this number 41 jersey, which is one of my favorite jerseys to wear. He's one of my favorite Saints that I've ever witnessed. And a lot of diehards will tell you that. I love that number 41 gets to stay in the black and gold, and I think we did right by him. Kamara wants to retire a Saint. He knows that if he took the black and gold off, he does not think he would get the same appreciation elsewhere. He's got the Kamara King Crunch cereal. He has leaned into this fan base. He loves this city. The city loves him. He loves that city. I live in Georgia, but speaking of, Louisiana, New Orleans, he loves that city. That city loves him. He's embraced that city. He knows as a third-round running back out of Tennessee, jumping into a Saints team that was off 3 straight 7-9 years and coming in and winning Offensive Rookie of the Year. Having 1,300 scrimmage yards, having 1,500 scrimmage yards and 13 touchdowns, having over 4,000 yards receiving as a running back for the New Orleans Saints, being a true dual threat running back for New Orleans. So I don't think it's a question of if Kamara deserved his money or not. Now, yes, you see the production over the last couple of years. You become kind of questionable. Take a look at Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael, because I believe Kubiak has gotten Kamara restored to a pretty decent role this year. And the production is looking nice. Again, Alvin Kamara is playing with a broken hand that he suffered in week 5. He's playing with broken ribs. His back hurts. His hip hurts. We know all of these guys are hurt, right? There's probably a lot of guys out there playing with injuries. But knowing at his position, at the running back position, that's tough. That's very tough. Constantly getting banged up on. Ton of touches in the NFL. Ton of touches in the games that you're going to be in. But you can also look on the flip side and say the Saints are still convinced that they can win now. The Saints are still possibly hanging on to the Drew Brees, Sean Payton era because of extending an older guy like Kamara, who not only was one of the few players that had somewhat of a tradable contract since it was running out this year, but also was still producing. So he had trade value as well. And the Saints locked him up. I was a little surprised because, I thought the end of Kamara's days were approaching just because of simply where the team is going. And knowing that the team doesn't have a lot of money. Again, they're $85 million over the cap, $81 million over the cap. Trying to remember correctly. It was a good move from New Orleans because it was a faithful move, and we know that the Saints do run this football team like a family more than a business at times. So in that aspect, I wasn't surprised. And in that aspect, I do think it was deserved because, again, he's the all-time Saints leader in total touchdowns, rushing touchdowns, scrimmage yards, all-purpose yards, and he's less than 250 yards away from being the all-time leader in rushing yards. Just right behind Mark Ingram. Over 4,200 yards receiving as a running back for this team. So his production has been there. But it does make you think about the fact that he is an older running back. he got a deal that is right in line with elite running back money, but we know that Kamara can be that guy. He's shown us that before. At one point, Alvin Kamara was the best running back in the NFL, and I loved sporting that title. I loved boom and zoom between Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram. It was quite beautiful. It was great. So, you know, I don't have a problem with the extension, but it is a double-edged sword. The Saints are still convinced that they can win now, but they're not just a running back and Alvin Kamara away from that or an extension with him away from that. He probably does hit the open market next year and doesn't get as much. Maybe takes a Derrick Henry type deal, $7 million, $8 million, but he wants to continue to be able to chase that ring. Not even being a ring chaser, but he wants to be able to chase that ring. Kamara said it himself. He's done well off the field. So, he doesn't have to make the most money on the field. He's very thankful for that. He said he's very blessed for that, and I'm happy for him as well. I don't know. It's not even a loss for words. It was just surprising on a couple of different aspects. Because again, he earned it. He earned the payday. Maybe not within recent years, but maybe this is an instance of the Saints looking beyond the results. But I want to give a big thank you to Alvin Kamara. I want to give a huge shout out to AK-41, one of my favorite Saints players of all time, because you know that it's been rough, especially the last couple of seasons. I'm sure you have an awareness and idea of where the team is at currently, financially, front office wise, personnel wise, and you still want to stick it out here, bro. And I just want you to know, as a diehard New Orleans Saints fan, and I'm sure I can say this on behalf of the entire city of New Orleans, we appreciate you for sticking with us, because moves like that are the reason why the black and gold remember you forever. And even if Kamara did hit the open market, like I was saying, maybe the Bills should have made a move for him, because Kamara he just wasn't the guy that he was. And of course, when you don't have Sean and Drew, that's going to make that feel very different. But thank you, Alvin, from the bottom of my heart, for sticking in New Orleans, for sticking with the Saints, for wanting to continue to put that fleur-de-lis on and represent this team from start to finish in your career. And I can't wait to have you as a Saint for life, if that's what you see in the cards for yourself, bro. So the Saints extend Alvin Kamara to a 2-year, $24.5 million deal with over $22 million guaranteed. A little bit of a couple of meanings here. I'll leave it up to your interpretation to decide what this could actually mean for the New Orleans Saints.